What does it take to be truly creative? According to Henri Matisse, creativity takes courage. But what else? My theory is that creativity calls for curiosity. Creativity craves playfulness. Creativity requires faith. Creativity demands mindfulness. Creativity takes the willingness to adventure. Those are all qualities we had as children. So I say, perhaps what creativity asks of us is that we free our inner child. My inner child asked, what is it really like in the swamp? And would I see alligators? Welcome, fellow inner children. I'm Dawn, and this is Inner Child Creates, where we test the theory that freeing your inner child also frees your creativity. Now, there's only really one way to find out if we would see alligators in the swamp, and that is to go to the swamp. And where else better to do it than in the deep, deep south of the Louisiana bayous. So, how do you do that? It's pretty simple here in Louisiana. You can book a tour out of Baton Rouge or New Orleans. There's plenty of options. For me, I want to be a little bit careful about what I choose because some of the options are ecological nightmares. They're feeding the alligators to get them used to coming up to boats, used to human interaction. And that breaks down the natural barrier that is between human and reptile. In nature, American freshwater alligators are shy. They don't come after you. They're not aggressive. They also don't stick around for a photo op. So they feed them, so they come up to the boat. Makes for a great tour. Not so great for the environment. Not so great for the way that the alligators should be behaving. Worst yet, sometimes there's tours where they hand you a little baby alligator. The mouth is all taped up, so of course you don't get hurt. But I have to ask, is that a quality of life for the alligator? Maybe people don't care. I do. And if it inspires you to become a conservationist, then great. But I think a lot of times it's just exploitation of the animal. So, I don't think it's very nice to pass a baby animal around from human to human with its mouth taped shut. So we're not going to do that. We're going to take a completely different approach today. We're going to do something a little more off the beaten path. I have booked a tour with a local guide. We're going to go out in a little boat with a prop engine with the alligators. Now maybe we won't actually see alligators. I hope we do, but if we don't, it'll be okay. The theory behind Inner Child Creates is that letting your inner child play, follow its curiosity, do what your heart leads you to do, those things lead you to creativity. So, whatever happens, I will create from it. I will write from it. So maybe my time in the swamp will inspire me to write an epic poem to rival that of the Odyssey. Probably not, but if it does, that would be great. If it doesn't, at least I'm going to write about the experience. So it's okay if we see an alligator and we don't see an alligator. I'm sure we're going to see something. We're going to see the swamp. And I've never seen the swamp before, so I'm pretty excited. Maybe we'll see some birds or some turtles or some snakes. I don't know. I'm really excited. So let's go. Hey, so just a second before we go, I want to show you this lovely little bed and breakfast where I got my pre-swamp beauty sleep this morning. From the moment you enter the property, you are welcomed by beautiful plants and flowers. Once inside, you're surrounded by art. Perfect for inner children creatives like us. I expected the artistic inspiration to be on our swamp adventure, but this bed and breakfast served as fuel for creativity. Most of the art is local, and much of it is inspired by and is of course a product of the nature and culture of Louisiana. In particular, I appreciated the portrait of Clementine Hunter. Unfortunately, it was a little difficult to get a good photo through the glass, but in it, she's holding one of her chickens, a buff Orpington hen. Reportedly, she loved her chickens. That, in addition to her love of art, made me feel a special connection, as I love my chickens too. Here I am with my buff Orpington, Minnie May. Clementine was remarkable, as she had no formal training, never learned to read or write, but succeeded in evoking emotion in her audience. She said, "I just get it in my mind and I just go ahead and paint, but I can't look at nothing and paint. No trees, no nothing. I just make my own tree in my mind. That's the way I paint." If ever there was a quote that embodies the theory of inner child creates, this is probably it. She just followed her heart. She created what she felt. So often we get hung up on art meeting certain criteria when really the purpose of art is to evoke emotion or to make others think, either about something we hold dear or something we ourselves are pondering. Getting hung up on those details silences our inner child when really it's that childlike creativity that we need to be tapping into. Now, off to the wild part of our adventure. I was excited to see our little boat waiting at the ramp. Getting ready to get on the boat.
See that?
Yeah.
That's the woodpecker. Look up, there's a hawk nest up there.
Oh, cool. That's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
He's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a fisher spider.
Looks almost like a wolf.
That's the ones that I was telling you guys about catching crawfish.
I happen to be fascinated by spiders, and I was happy to see this one, a white-banded fishing spider. Huge, fast, and capable of hunting crawfish.
You see snakes. Sometimes we'll see a nutria. Have you guys heard of a nutria?
Yeah, like those big rodents.
It's like
unusual size.
like oversized muskrat.
Yeah.
Like a beaver with a rat tail.
I have realized that I make a lot of references. I amuse myself with it, honestly. So maybe in these videos we'll play a little game. When I realize I've made one, I'll point them out and we'll see which ones you get. Today's is rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist. I've always found the snow egret, or snowy egret, to be a stately and fascinating bird with its pristine white feathers. Their legs are black, but their toes and their feet are bright yellow. Why? To be a fishing lure, of course. I imagine it's the natural theory, like great white sharks, where they are dark colored from one direction and light colored from the other to maximize camouflage depending on where they're being looked at from. From in the water, the black legs of the egret would be less obvious below the surface. White would be less obvious looking up through the water to the sky. And bright yellow toes might look like a tasty treat. Clever how the trap is set. And there's something to this that's applicable to our art. The siren in our writing, the illusions in our painting. Our guide definitely has an eye for this and points out all kinds of wildlife. The only problem is that once he calls out the sighting, almost all the creatures are quick to get away. And I wanted to see alligators. And these guys seem notorious for quick exits. There's one. Now you see it. Now you don't.
Up there.
It was a Mississippi kite.
Oh,
There you go.
oh, cool.
I learned that being in the eagle family, courtship between the Mississippi kite is believed to involve aerial acrobatics, which, if you've ever seen bald eagles doing that, is pretty impressive. Both parents incubate the eggs and both raise their young. They are some of the best at in-flight maneuvering and can even eat while soaring. But this isn't an animal documentary, so I digress. Be forewarned, it may happen from time to time, as I have a deep love for animals and have watched a lot of Steve Irwin in my day. In the distance, we see another boat heading towards us. It turned out to be a crawfish hunter. He kindly offered us drinks from his cooler full of Dr. Pepper and showed us his catch as he told us about his day.
They picking up or what? No?
That's all I got.
Man, at least they're pretty.
250 crap. Water messages up.
When I was a kid, growing up in the northern Midwest, we called them crawdads. Ow. Oh, he's getting me with that. I made pets out of them sometimes, but I never ate them. I even had a blue one for a few years in an aquarium. Louisiana crawfish are a whole different culture though, with entire livelihoods and social events, some could even argue social structures, resting upon them. It's entirely different from anything I've experienced before.
They all do.
Louisiana crawfish. And this little unexpected encounter was one of the best moments of the adventure. This guy was funny and kind, although some different types would consider him a little rough around the edges. He's out here every day working his crawfish traps. I love getting a perspective from an entirely different area, a different culture, a different way of looking at things. As artists, how can we expect to speak to anyone beyond ourselves or our own little group if we don't have an appreciation for the richness and diversity that fills our earth? It takes so many different types of people to make our planet what it is. We all have the same basic emotions, but the bridges to understanding those emotions are as unique as fingerprints. The more experiences we have, the more adventures, the wider our perspective, then the deeper and richer our creativity will be.
The cypress, they lose their leaves, so they go bald. It's like on bald cypress. So this was all cut down. They cut down these. It was a forest of these about 100, 125 years ago.
You cannot encounter one of these majestic bald cypress and not be impressed by its stature. Our guide discussed how the ones like this one survive the logging clear-cutting by being hollow. This one is probably hundreds of years old. This entire area once had a 150-foot canopy, a full forest of these magnificent, impressive bald cypress. But the bald cypress is rot resistant and its wood is beautiful, so logging was lucrative. Now only a portion, many hollow, still remain. I was drawn into my imagination of what it must have been like, how the area must have sang with the sounds of birds and wildlife. It's still wild, but the likes of what it must have been can now only be imagined. Sadly, this area has been hit with more frequent flooding. Unfortunately, it doesn't show any signs of getting better. I don't have it on video, but I observed a man on his deck, or rather his island, as there was no land surrounding it, and I wonder how long people can continue to live here. With the sadness that I felt about the bald cypress logging, I also ponder how we've manipulated waterways, watersheds. As a society, we just assumed we could bend nature to our use without any side effects, that we didn't have to be good stewards of what we were blessed with. Everything we do has an effect, whether it be in our environment, in our work, in our families, or in our art. At the conclusion of our adventure, on our way out, we drove through town and appreciated some of the local architecture. I wish we still put the detail into homes like we once did. I think if I lived in a home like one of these, I would feel like I was living in a piece of art. So in the end, I didn't see any alligators up close, but I did get to see them in their natural habitat, and that's pretty special. It's an adventure I'll always treasure. And who knows, maybe in my next adventure, I will find some alligators and get up close and personal, or perhaps I will track down some ROUSs. You let me know if you know where I can find one of those creatures. Ultimately, when we follow our inner child, it's a doorway, and we have no way of knowing what wonderful worlds lie behind that door. My inner child wanted to see alligators in the wild, but the creator in me found something entirely different. I found myself impressed by this cypress, and my inspiration came from the basin as an entity. My thoughts were about our relationship to that resource. My goal is, at the very least, you'll find a little entertainment. But my hope is that you'll feel a connection as an artist, that you'll recognize the inner child within you that will help you tap into your creativity, whether you're already a professional, aspiring to become a professional, or someone who just wants more creativity in your life. If you want to know specifically what I was inspired to create, then I'll put it in my blog. It was a poem. Yes, I know, I joked about a poem, but I didn't know it was really going to be a poem. I mean, I like poetry, so it's not that big of a stretch, but I didn't know that's what it would be. So if you're curious to read it, you can go to the blog, which is innerchildcreates.com, and you can read the poem. It also inspired me to get out my watercolors, and I haven't decided if those will be on the blog because I'm not a visual artist in that sense. I'm a lighting designer and a writer, but we'll see. This video, this entire Inner Child Creates idea, is an act of its own making. I'm following my inner child. It's a door, and I have no idea what possibilities lie beyond. I want to make a creative community. I want a place we can come together and honor our inner children, where we can tap into the deepest wells of our creativity. If you're intrigued and you want to help me do this, then subscribe. It's easy and free, and watch, because ultimately that's what YouTube cares about. And I'm not trying to be a YouTuber, but I don't want the content just buried because I don't think it'll get views. So until next time, be kind to yourself and others, and listen to your inner child.